Welcome to the Cannabis Equipment News Podcast.
Hi, I'm David Manti, and welcome to a new episode of the Cannabis Equipment News Podcast. With me this week is John Shute, CEO of Puff Creative. Thank you very much for joining me today, John.
David, thanks so much for having me. I really appreciate it.
Before we get started, please make sure to like, share, and subscribe to the podcast. You could also help us out a lot by leaving the podcast a positive review on whatever platform you use. If you want to email the podcast, you can reach me at david@cannabisequipmentnews.com with email the podcast in the subject line. You can also subscribe to our daily newsletter. Make sure you get it delivered to your inbox first. John, I always like to start with background. I want to know how people came to the industry. So what was it that brought you to cannabis?
Oh, man. Story goes back, I mean, when I was a teenager, when I first started consuming for real. But what really sparked me getting into the industry was actually the opiate crisis in the Northeast, where I'm from. I got a master's in project management. I right after I graduated, I was initially able to apply that to actually disruptive nightlife marketing. And right around that same time, I lost a few friends and family members to opiates, and that was the straw that broke the camel's back into fulfilling my passions and feeling more fulfilled with just how I was spending my time anyway. And I've had a lot of friends and just read up on how cannabis and just alternative medicine can help people with addiction or just other ailments of life. And so I applied to be the marketing director of a contract manufacturing company in Northern California as my first cannabis job. It was the only available job on Indeed.com about 10 and a half years ago. And I got the gig and really crushed it for them, even though they kind of screwed me over, and that's what led me to forming Puff Creative. I learned a lot. I learned everything that pretty much happens from seed to sale in both the cannabis and the hemp spaces. And the company, since they were a contract manufacturer and kind of touched all points of the system, they also had in-house brands as well. So, I was doing B2C marketing for their in-house brands on the cannabis side. I was doing B2C marketing for their hemp brands on the hemp side, but then I was doing B2B marketing for them on both the cannabis and hemp side. And each one of those kind of has a different strategy just because there's different rules that apply to both industries. So that's how it kind of got started.
How did they screw you over?
So I was working on a minimal part-time engagement just as a contractor to start. And it was right around the same time I was about to get married. I got married in April, and I started working for them maybe about 9 months prior. And so they kind of hung, reaching a bunch of different KPIs of revenue over my head. And they were like, yeah, right before you get married, we'll offer you a full-time role. You'll get health, insurance. We got you, man. We got your back. And then about a month before my wedding, they let me know that they were having leadership issues, and they couldn't even just work with me anymore. It wasn't like we can't hire you full time. It was like we can't work with you or anyone else anymore. And so it was just really disappointing because I really jumped in head first to that role and really actually made a critical difference for them from both just a growth and marketing perspective and alleviating their leadership's time. And so, really disappointing, but just how I like to kind of approach a lot of things in life, I turned that negative into a positive. And that's really essentially why I formed Puff Creative. I saw the value in what I was providing and just, how much drive I had. And that was about 8.5 years ago now when that whole journey started with Puff.
So what were some of those real changes that you made for the company?
Really just mainly systems and then quality execution. So they had a guy who was running the show over there that understood what needed to be done, but didn't know how to do it and didn't know how to have a formula and a schedule to it. So really it was segmenting different audiences for them on their email. So they had a big list of B2C, customers, clients, leads, like all of these things. So I was able to segment all those audiences and then cater my email communication to all of them based on whatever segment they were in. So that was a big part of it, because they just had all this great information to work with and didn't know how to work with it properly. But then I also set up a system to get them new leads into those funnels. And then on the social media and content side, they weren't really executing like written content in forms of like SEO driven blogs or targeting those different demographics. So was writing a lot of content and then also aligning both the email and the content writing with their social media strategy. And this was about, 10 and a half years ago. So quite different algorithms than what we're working with now. So even like just normal, like Meta, before Facebook and Instagram, I think even were combined. I think they were two separate entities then. Different strategies and different performance than you would see now. So if I had that job now, I would approach it a little bit differently, knowing what I know about the industry and like what's moving the needle. But still was able to jump into that role and see like immediate impact, which is really, really cool.
So you're fairly new in your career at that point. You're newly married. How do you decide to take the plunge and kind of, take your fate into your own hands?
Man, I'm a just send it kind of guy. With both, I think my professional and extreme sports and music careers as well. So I honestly just felt like I didn't have a choice. Um, I felt like there was a lot of things in my life that have happened to me with just outcomes of how like where I ended up with college, like where I ended up with my wife, and I just felt like it was more of a destiny kind of thing. Like I felt like I grew up with my parents both being entrepreneurs, and my mom started a nonprofit as well, and so I've always been very gung ho about doing my own thing, and I felt like the stars just kind of aligned for me to take that full plunge into it. And it was not an easy decision. I actually was just on another interview talking about this. Like I was not only judged when I first got my project management master's degree, it was online. So people are like, "Oh my God, online project, like you're wasting your time." And it's literally all I do now. And then same thing when I started the agency, family and friends like a cannabis marketing agency, like what? And here we are. People say in life like you need to take risk in order to succeed. So I just really try to capitalize on those moments when they kind of pop up.
Well, that's what they say in front of the group, right? They're like, cannabis marketing. What are you, crazy? And then after everyone's kind of broken out after dinner, they're like, so tell me what you know and what I need to get.
Yeah, you totally. I mean, it's hilarious like going to weddings or, family events since I made that decision. People speak to me like I am like a, billionaire investor and like, hey, what should I invest in? Like which company's hot right now? Like, and then the other thing is just like, hey, like my grandma has cancer or arthritis, like what should I give her? And I'm just like, hey, like here's what I'm seeing and what I know, but like I'm not like an investment specialist and I'm not like a doctor, so like all I can tell you is what I know and understand. So it's wild just how the conversation has changed over the years, and especially now it's once you're, I feel like, past the first few years of like running a business, like people are like, oh wow, like this guy's on to something. um
Do you feel like you were able to successfully run a business and then also keep up with, interest in extreme sports and music?
Yeah, that's definitely been a priority for me. Um, is like that balance. Like I also have two children, so I put in a lot of time at work. Like you kind of don't have a choice in the field that I've chosen, and also the industry. But since I've started, I've always made working out, going snowboarding, going skateboarding. I'm still in the band now. I got band practice tonight. Um, but me and my wife really work well together in that manner. And I try to apply that approach to like my children's life as well. And like, I'm constantly in that balance of being a leader, being a father, being a husband, being a family member. Um,
You'd
So
mentioned you'd mentioned that you started in the disruptive nightlife marketing uh,
yeah.
space. What is that?
Yeah, so it's funny because I preach a lot of disruptive marketing in cannabis because I really feel it's needed. And I say disruptive marketing in nightlife because I was never a nightlife person. I was actually helping my family because they had my father and mom have been involved in nightlife and restaurants my entire life. I think my dad's going on like almost 50 years now in nightlife. And so he was actually getting robbed by one of his managers right when I graduated from that master's degree. And so I took a plunge down to help him with his businesses because I was just like, what the heck's going on down there? Like, people are stealing money. Like, I was looking at their marketing and like how they're scheduling things. I'm like, this doesn't line up. So I kind of went down there to align the operation, the marketing, and obviously see what's going on with like the money behind the scenes. But this was right around the time when Snapchat became a new social platform, and it was before there was an Instagram story. And so, me not being from the nightlife scene per se, I took this approach that no one else was really taking in the nightlife industry at the time. And so, I was giving folks a behind the scenes look of like what actually happened day to day as someone who like worked in a nightclub and what happened behind the scenes, and then I was taking those videos and then turning those into new content. Like, now people call them reels, but they were just like 15-second video clips of like what happened start to finish through the night, and like all these really cool things of like, the DJs pulling the confetti and like how we were loading stuff in for like a big concert. And yeah, I had like maybe 60,000 active viewers like a night on that, looking at just the Snapchat, not even including like all the, yeah, it was really cool. And the videos performed super well because it was just not, it was just different from like what everyone else, like all the other nightclubs and nightlife in South Florida at the time were putting out very similar types of videos and content. And the club itself, even though very successful, but it was in its 11th year, which is pretty long life cycle for a nightclub. So they kind of didn't have a choice but to like bring someone like me in from like a really outside, unique perspective. And then it was really cool coming to cannabis because I was able to apply that approach with like a lot of our early on work, which was very photo, video, social media heavy. But that's when we started identifying all of these gaps with branding and performance marketing, which led to us offering the full suite of services that we offer now. Um,
So,
so
did the employee get arrested? Was there just like a hey, quietly go away, or what happened after you kind of exposed these managers from stealing from your dad?
it was more of a quietly go away. It was
Okay.
there was a long-term relationship there. He has a family and children, so it was more just like, please get out of here, and we don't ever want to hear from you again, type of
Okay.
thing. I learned a lot from just that situation in general because I remember going into it, I was like 20, I don't even know, 24, 25. So I was really hot, like headed at that time. I was younger, didn't have as much, professional knowledge or patience, I guess you'd say. So I
Hmm.
was like, why aren't we like pressing charges against this guy? And like, they're just like, we know his kids, that's why. And like, we know his wife. And like, we're not trying to destroy this guy's life, but we need to get him out of here and fix this because this is a problem.
So, what are the tactics, disruptive tactics, that you think people could take in the cannabis industry to kind of stand above the fray?
Yeah, I mean, a lot of it starts with the branding process for me. A lot, like you'll notice not most, that's the wrong word to use. A lot of cannabis companies, especially ones who have been around for quite some time, haven't necessarily gone through like a formal branding process or strategy or like go-to market. It's been such a unique industry in terms of like growth and timing and how much money it takes to actually evolve, where a lot of just found like rudimentary or basic branding marketing tactics have kind of got left behind because there's companies that have just grown super super fast because they kind of got in at the right time or shook the right hands or whatever it may be. So in my opinion, like we really try to get people to connect with their target demographics, but not just through design, not just through messaging, not just through packaging, but all the way to the ethos of the company and how they're going to actually not only make change in people's personal lives, but be solving problems around those people. And so, for example, like a dispensaries in emerging markets, those are some of my favorite because each emerging market has its own relationship with cannabis. Like, how did they, how many people were incarcerated for it? How many, like, how is cannabis affecting the environment, around, or will affect the environment? And like, what were people bringing up in meetings during the licensing process for towns to like opt in? And so you can kind of see, or like, hey, there's a lot of pollution like in this area. Like, how can we help solve that problem? So, great design that's very thought out, that aligns with the target demographic, that aligns with the brand identity, which aligns the problems that you're going to be solving, whether it be, some people need to sleep better, some people need to be more creative, some people just want to get really high. So how can you kind of cater all of the design, the messaging, the packaging to be cohesive, but also bring in that community and that extra layer of how you're helping people kind of consume and make the world a better place? Because the cannabis industry, but also the cannabis consumers, I feel, have this unique opportunity to see a different perspective of how alternative medicine can kind of make a difference in not only their personal lives, but also the world too. And that's really, you know, I know I got in the industry because of the opiate side of things, but since I've been in, it's opened my eyes to endless amount of problems that can be solved. And so try to infuse that into not only the branding, but then as we go through the process on the campaigns we're doing and who we're speaking to and the content we're writing. It's pretty cool. But it's hard to be disruptive without going through a formal process and also just understanding those things about who your target demo is and what's realistic for you. People will launch with like, 100 SKUs for like no reason, and just waste a bunch of time and money on that. Or, folks, like a lot of folks, when we do exercise with them, they're like, I want to be just like Cookies, or I want to be just like 710 Labs, or, a big, company like that. And it's like, I think you need to check the reality of your situation and like what's actually going to move the needle for you. And so, yeah, those are the types of conversations I really enjoy having, because you can really open up opportunity for like really disruptive um, uh, implementations that you might not have thought about if you didn't go through a formal exercise or talk to a team that's like asking the right questions.
Well, into the average operator, this sounds like a very onerous process, right? Like time intensive, labor intensive.
Yeah.
Could you talk a little bit about how it could be rather simple to get started, and what kind of ROI you'd be looking at once you've gone through this process?
Yeah, so I think there's a short-term and long-term perspective that you need to apply to answer that question. Um, in the like I mentioned, the branding process is very critical, and everyone is up against a different timeline and budget factors. And so those are things that we like to learn very, very early on, because we want to create the path of least resistance to get the highest ROI. So in general, what we see is when someone has great branding and a great website, when you implement performance driven marketing tactics. So if you're a retailer, it's going to be a lot of SEO. Most of the traffic's going to come from that program as a retailer. Direct advertising, whether it be, workarounds on Google PPC and Meta, or programmatic, or some other media buying, and then retention marketing. So email, SMS, all three of those things you can link up to your Google Analytics for, and you can track the revenue for those activities. So the better branding and better website that you see, the higher the conversion rate and the better the analytics you're going to get on the back end. The problem is what is your situation in the front? Do we have time to actually go through a formal branding process? Do you actually have the budget to maybe purchase or analyze deep data of the market that you're about to dive into? And that's where I think things differentiate. So we just helped a company in Rhode Island. They were one of the largest brands in the state. They just acquired a retail license. They gave us a 60-day timeline to logo, brand identity, website, e-commerce, launch the SEO, launch the PPC, launch the retention marketing. And so in those situations, the path of least resistance was going through, hey, it doesn't look like you guys have enough time for us to actually do deep research into your area and the data and work with someone like Frontier or BDSA Analytics to pull consumer demographics. And so what information can you guys provide about your customer and your target demo based off your experience or just so so we can apply that to the brand identity. So in that situation, even just launching with our logo and brand book package, they still were able to have more tools than a lot of folks in the industry and paths that we cross who just don't have anything to work with if we jump in. So people hire us for like SEO or retention or social or whatever it may be. And a lot of times they don't even have that, which is like, you need to have that. So yeah, people like us, I feel like are a bit more flexible and understanding because we've kind of crossed paths with all the different situations that people are in, whether it be an emerging market where you don't even have a license yet, or you're in a very, very competitive market and you have 20 people down the street. And so we're able to kind of adapt like, hey, based off your timeline, your budget, your situation, here's the path of least resistance, or here's what's going to maximize your ROI. Some people have a lot of time and have a budget and a great pro forma to work with. And that's great because we can really go in and do damage and take our time to do the right research. And some people just don't have that budget. So I think our value add is being able to adapt to people's situations and make them a success based on all of our experience in the industry. Because if you approach someone who doesn't understand all these little nuances of what you're going to go through as a cannabis operator, whether it be a retailer, a brand, a manufacturer, or a fully integrated company, you're going to have problems. You're going to hit roadblocks. You're going to spend money and waste time.
I understand that, you'd probably want to have the largest budget and the most amount of time to work, but is there something with the challenge in terms of a tighter timeline and a tighter budget that excites you?
Yeah, I would say so. I mean, the project that we just launched for that Rhode Island company, I'm like really, really hyped on that we're able to turn that around. I think it just it excites me because it shows that all the hard work and experience and portfolio that we've built really allows us to help people navigate the nuances of this wild industry that we're in. But on the flip side, having more time and budget and just realistic expectations of outcomes, it goes a long way. It's why some of these bigger companies or bigger brands are so successful. But it's just not the reality of everyone's situation. So there's a path that everyone should take. It's just, how do you get there?
Do you run into unrealistic expectations a lot?
Um, I I would say that we do. I would say that we try to account for them earlier on than most. So we have a process with like, this is even just newer in the past couple of years because there's a huge influx in the value, I feel like, of branding, marketing, and technology since COVID. Before COVID, it was way harder to track data, way harder to prove ROI. And then there was a huge technology advancement right around the COVID time because cannabis became essential, and that just kind of sparked a whole new excitement with investing and people's time. And so, yeah, it's exciting in both cases, but the tight timelines definitely I think are exciting just because you have to take like a couple extra breaths of air to kind of get through those projects and make people happy.
How would you describe the average cannabis marketer?
I mean, it's hard to say. It's really hard to say because the average cannabis marketer is most likely either working on just one single piece of the puzzle or they're working on them all. And so that's also where I think that we come to bridge the gap. There's a larger company that I've been pitching over the past like year or so. They were a big operator in California. They just picked up some spots in Michigan. I think they're starting to get into Minnesota, maybe New Jersey. And they were working with one of our competitors. And so they hired us to do some audits of the work that was being performed. And so we pointed out all these huge gaps in the SEO and the data tracking and the retention program that they weren't actually doing properly, which is huge. If you're not retaining people properly as a retailer, I mean, it's a huge gap. Way cheaper than acquisition, and it's the name of the game. Like if you can control the life cycle of your customer, you have a lot of power as like a retailer in this industry. And so, I pointed out all these huge gaps in their strategy and their performance. I made some calculations of revenue projections that we could get of winning back lost customers that they've lost over the past like 60, 180 days. And they were all about it. And then they're like, we're going to get rid of this other agency and we just hired like a guy. And it's like, you just hired a guy. Like, you guys are a huge company. How is one guy going to do design, SEO, web management, customer retention, social media for 20 plus locations and do it right? So in those situations, I imagine that they're going to come back because it's just not possible. Average cannabis marketer, it's so many different types of people that I've crossed, my path working with companies who have an in-house team or have one guy running the show. So many different personality types. On our team, we're at the point where we have a really great culture. We have departments, so each cannabis marketer on our team specializes in a very niche, like special niche. So it's either a designer, they're either an SEO specialist, they're either a social media specialist, those types of funnels. But our culture is everyone on my team is very, very passionate about the plant and very, very passionate about alternative medicine and very passionate about the difference that we're making as an agency, not only with our clients, but we've done a ton of community work and over the years ourselves as an agency. So on our team, there's a hardworking specialization aspect to each person on my team, but there's a very cultural passion, respectful aspect of everyone on my team too, which is really cool.
Do you do a lot of work on the B2B side?
Yeah, we do. A lot, I would say a majority is on the B2C side just because like brands and retailers, there's more of them. But yeah, we do work on the B2B side, both for hemp companies, psychedelics, and cannabis. On the cannabis side, there's tech companies that we've worked with. There's manufacturers and growers and retailers that need a B2B strategy to get into more stores or pick up new brands or develop tighter relationships with those folks. So yeah, quite kind of a big mix.
Okay. I mean, and because you've mentioned it a lot, I'm assuming that is it SEO? Is it that side of the business where there's more low-hanging fruit for people that are, really looking to make an immediate impact when it comes to their marketing efforts?
Not always.
Okay.
SEO, there is low-hanging fruit that a lot of people aren't capitalizing on, and that's usually the first things that we notice when there's a gap. But the SEO is also a long game too. So the sooner that you actually implement a strategy, not only the sooner you're going to start ranking better for keywords that you're targeting for your target demo, but you're going to be creating a gap between you and your competitors. So and it's different. Like a retailer, because it's a brick and mortar location or something that's just a brick and mortar location in general, SEO is going to be a huge factor because people are typing in keywords all the time to get to the products that you're selling. Someone who's on the B2B side, that's a little bit more of a longer game because the velocity of the searches and the clicks and the need just isn't there as much day to day. So we have B2B clients that we've jumped in and made a huge difference even in the first 30 days. But a lot of that is going to end up being long-term work because, again, it just the velocity of the search and the need isn't as much as a day-to-day cannabis retailer. A retailer, on the other hand, I mean, like I said, like we're seeing anywhere from, on average, like 50 to 70% of their traffic coming from like our SEO programs.
Wow. I mean, that's an immediate impact.
Yeah.
For people that are interested, how can they figure out what keywords they're ranking for, what are bringing people to their website, where there is opportunity to kind of gain some market share. How could they get started there?
Yeah, I mean, at the very least, folks should be set up Google Analytics for their website. That's just a no-brainer. Um, you could take it a step further with Google Search Console. Both have different capabilities and filters that people can go through, and they can see performance for the week, for the month, uh, 30 days for 30 days, 3 months versus 3 months. And that's where you can kind of, if you're able to analyze that data properly, you're able to see like where you're actually performing well, where you're not. And even if you're not going to fix those gaps and stuff yourself, you know what questions to ask. And like when someone presents to you an audit, you at least are able to wrap your mind around, does this agency or does this marketer know what they're talking about? Because we walk into projects a lot, we take over a lot of projects. Like we haven't really done like advertising or outbound sales or anything yet. And that's 8.5 years in, and I'm saying that, you know. And so yeah, there's just a lot of tactics being implemented that aren't catering to the very niche and nuanced side of cannabis SEO and just marketing in general.
Do you still, I mean, I feel like a lot of the other parts of the industry have been able to sort of chase off the bad actors. Do you still see a fair amount on the marketing side?
Um, Yeah, I mean, I think you'll find that in really any industry, though. There's always marketing agencies popping up and people wanting to become marketers. That's why I'm so proud of the amount of success that we've been able to see without doing advertising and outbound sales, because my vision was always that if I can build a positive reputation, I can build a really strong portfolio and make it past, 5 to 6 years. That's what's really going to be able to allow us to accelerate our growth despite there being bad actors or other agencies popping up. But yeah, there's a lot of I have a lot of respect for a lot of other agencies and competitors and marketers out there who I'm friends with. But yeah, there, again, we take over a decent amount of projects, and there's some interesting things happening out there for sure.
I mean, what kind of role do collaborations and partnerships with other players in the industry, what kind of role do those play in that accelerated growth for Puff Creative?
I mean, it's a critical role. We try to play nice with. I would say that our angle is that we're agnostic to folks' situations. So we could jump into a project where they have three different tech stack. They have a different POS system, e-com, and loyalty system, and they're working with maybe two other agencies on other parts of the business. And we could jump in and fit into that tech system and be able to work with those other agencies, no problems. So we try to have tight partnerships with the tech partners and consulting groups out there who most of our clients are working with. And I would say that's a very critical relationship for us, because you need to know how to utilize the tools that your clients are using to succeed. And that's where you can become very innovative and effective at the same time. We've built out our like API team, so we can have deeper integrations and relationships with a lot of the tech companies in the industry, because we just want to maximize the value of our work. Like if we know how to maximize someone's e-commerce to its fullest capability, that's going to give us more juice on the SEO and advertising side. So that's going to be a higher ROI for them. That's going to be a longer relationship for us with the client, and
When it
healthier relationship.
Okay. When it comes to marketing budgets, we hear a lot that a lot of the marketing budget goes towards trade shows in particular. I mean, sometimes 100% of the marketing budget is trade shows. Can you talk to the value of going to trade shows? And, is it worth it to some operators to be kind of spending the entire marketing budget just on that 10 by 10?
It's situational, right? I think that there is a lot of value in trade shows, but there's no point in spending money on a trade show if you don't have a system in place to properly capitalize on um, the you know the customers that you're meeting or potential leads that you're meeting at the trade show. So you need to have. Again, that's a question that I would say that like if I was working with someone and they were asking how to spend their marketing budget, I would need to really understand where they're at as a company and who their target demo is to help them navigate that. But yeah, I do see a lot of people spending way too much money on trade shows only because they create a bottomless like a quick like it's almost like quicksand. Like you spend 30 grand on three trade shows over a course of a year, but like you didn't collect any emails or communicate with those people properly, and your website and your branding stinks. So when those people actually maybe got the email or looked at your site after I met you at the booth, they were like, "Oh, I'm not gonna work with those guys." It's all these like little moments and little things that like really add up to make someone's decision. Especially in this day and age, you only have a couple seconds to like make an impression. I do think that there's a big value add to in-person experience because people can really catch a vibe. But even with that, you're catching a vibe. Yeah, you met them, but it's what happens after. It's those impressions that happen on the follow up.
Yeah, well, and it is wild how you can catch a vibe and then go to a person's website that looks like it was designed in '98, and you're just like, oh, I don't know.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, I see it all the time. It's a really big thing, and I feel like in retail and retailers, I don't think necessarily realize how like they only have a few seconds to capture someone, and if you didn't, that means they're on the next guy's site down the street. And what if they like got them into their customer retention program? Now those guys are gone. That customer's gone. It's gonna be really hard to get that person to come back now.
You had mentioned earlier that you like to work on programs that really move the needle for your clients. Is there anything in particular? Well, what right now in cannabis is moving the needle?
Well, it depends on the vertical. I think across any vertical, understanding your audience and segmenting properly and communicating with them on a strategic cadence is going to be super valuable. But again, it's these marketing principles that apply to any type of marketing situation. It's great branding, it's great community engagement, it's a great website, and then there's the performance side. What happens on the performance side is what's different for, I think, a retailer, a brand, or maybe a B2B company, right? So, a retailer, again, I said this earlier, but SEO, no brainer. Loyalty, retention, management strategy, no brainer. Some type of advertising, solution, Google, programmatic, whatever. Those are the three things that you can track and you can actually make decisions on. Do I think that social media and PR and content, visual content marketing are great? I think that they are. I think they really make a difference, and they're not as trackable as the others. So if you're going to do those things, you need to budget for them properly, and you need to be realistic about your situation going into that because you can exhaust your budget on ego-driven marketing. Beyond that, there's performance and there's ego-driven, right? What's actually a reality for you and what's going to make sense. For a brand, a little bit different. I'm speaking just in terms of cannabis because on hemp, a D2C brand in hemp is trackable because you have a transaction on a D2C hemp brand website. In cannabis, it's a little different because there's no transactions on a brand website. So we first of all we're innovating in that realm. We've partnered with different companies like Little Alerts for the analytics and a few other the store locator companies out there. We're developing APIs and advancing on them to customize not only the design of those store locators, but the trackability of what happens when you get someone on the brand website and they click into a retailer. How far can we track that, right? And so we're trying to work on tying that into GA4 properly, so brands can actually monetize their platform and learn lessons. But on the brand side, great brand, great website, store locator, but it gets a little bit more nuanced because you're not tracking conversions and revenue on that website. So you really need to get nuanced and see, okay, we really need to get into a bunch of, we have a great brand, great packaging, website. We need to get into a ton of stores. How are we going to do that? Bud tender education, sales material, sales strategy, aligning that all with the marketing. That's just the start. Then it's like, okay, which retailers does my brand make the most money off of? Great, let's lean into that more, and let's see if they'll actually allow us to set up tracking on their retail through a campaign, so we can see what's actually moving the needle. On the B2B side, it's just different depending on the velocity and what type of B2B platform you're using. Like someone who's in like a SaaS B2B company, like a tech company or something like that. SEO, PPC, people are going to be searching for that. It's a matter of like how much are people searching for that. The other side is all your target demographic is probably on LinkedIn, so you could do LinkedIn lead gen, LinkedIn advertising, and things like that. So those are just examples, right? Again, everyone's situation is different because of who their target demo is and their budget and their budget. But that's kind of the initial. When we're going into projects like that, that's how we're looking at them.
That's one thing that I noticed in the industry, and it varies depending on if you're talking to a marketer that's more on the tech side of the industry versus someone that's more on the creative side. But you can really get people fired up by asking them whether or not thought leadership pieces and blogs are important on their site.
Yeah, I personally think that they are. I think that's one of the most critical things. Like thought leadership content, not only is great content that's gonna convert when you put it out there to the world, but that's a long form authoritative content piece that's going to actually help your site perform in the long term. So it's like there's short term value gain and then long term value gain with things like that. And then there's all these benefits of how you repurpose that content. Because my favorite thing is like I really enjoy writing deep thought leadership pieces about nuances of cannabis marketing and breaking that authoritative content segment into bits and pieces of a campaign and trying to really hit people, that one thing that I wrote or that one thing I said is what got someone to make that decision or learn that lesson that they're trying to learn. So yeah, I think it's a really valuable thing, but getting everyone to participate or getting clients to participate in it is one thing. And then getting people to do it strategically and effectively is another. Because you can have someone write a, thought leadership piece, but it's not optimized, wasn't published properly. There wasn't a proper call to action. Like, what are you really getting out of that? So,
what is it? Oh, sorry. What do you mean when it wasn't published properly or it wasn't optimized?
Yeah. So like if you're not optimizing your content, your written content on your website for SEO, how is that properly going to index and hit the right keywords in the target demo if it's not being indexed properly because it's not optimized for SEO? So someone who wrote a similar thought leadership piece, but they optimize it for search engines and LLMs like AI search, they're going to always outperform you, right? So it's those little things. And then publishing properly, I notice a lot of times it's really strange. Like people don't actually even have like the author or like the date or like the blog properly integrated into their site. So that's just a whole nother piece of like, why would Google, not why would Google rank that piece if they don't even know the timing of when you put that out or the relevancy of it, and the users don't know when you put that out and the relevancy of it? So I see that a lot actually, like people not just putting like 101 things like in their content pieces or like optimizing them for SEO. It's a pretty common issue among all the different verticals.
Do you see value in having thought leadership pieces published on other platforms?
I do. Yeah, I see a lot of value in it actually, especially if that platform has a lot of viewers that are in your target demo. Not only are you getting short-term gain from them potentially reading that thought leadership piece or them clicking into the email that media partner sent out, but then there's long-term value in the backlink from that media partner or that thought leadership piece. So if, say I wrote a blog on your website about cannabis marketing in 2025, right? And it's, you put it out in your email and someone Googles it and maybe your site is more authority than my site. And that's what pops up. That's a huge value add, but taking advantage of someone else's domain authority is value add in the short term. And then that long-term backlink, that's trust that you're developing with search engines.
Well, I definitely welcome that piece and sharing your voice with our readers, just because I think that you have a lot of very important tips when it comes to marketing that a lot of people Sometimes it seems like common sense, but I think that when you're in the industry, you think that everybody's thinking about it, right? Until you get out in
Yeah.
the industry and you realize not a lot of people are thinking about it.
Yeah. Oh my God, totally. I really enjoy talking about this stuff because it really is just I'm regurgitating everything that I've learned, and I as I learn things, I try to make that change with how we operate and how we function. But yeah, there's big gaps out there. Like it's funny, like some of the companies that have inspired me now are clients or leads, and like all these things that I thought that they had in place, they didn't. And it just, they got in at the right time and they got super lucky. But even if you got in at the right time, or if you're super lucky, that next guy's coming up soon, and they're going to have more money and more budget and more experience. And it's a never ending competitive game that some people lose sight of if you maybe get lucky in the beginning. Because like I always ask people, I bring up cookies probably way too much. Great brand, they're super disruptive, right? Everyone knows who they are, but I bring it up because people will question a lot of what we say, or maybe our pricing or our approach or something like that. And I always say, okay, say we don't do that, those three things that we suggested. What's going to happen when Cookies opens up down the street? What are you going to do? How are you going to acquire customers then? How are you going to get that customer? They're going to go. That customer that's shopped at your store for 2 years, right? They're going to go. How do you make sure that they come back? And that's the $1 million question right there, because that's really the only way people should be looking at it, even as a brand. Because when Cookies enters a state, maybe not as a retailer, they're going to be on shelves. That retailer is going to put it on the shelf. How do you make sure those other three brands that are on the shelf, you're not the one that gets taken down? How do you account for that? And those are the questions that people I notice are not really asking themselves. And that's why we set up our services and our pricing and our approach the way we have.
I mean, without giving away the secret sauce, like, how do you make sure that doesn't happen to you?
All the things that I'm talking about, like
Yeah,
go like
okay.
if you haven't gone through a formal branding exercise,
No.
now's the time.
Okay.
Like it's things are about to get crazy right now in cannabis. Who knows what's going to happen with not only our country but the globe. There could be a lot of opportunity out there. People. It's hard to think about opportunity just with everything going on in our country and the globe right now. But I think that chaos breeds opportunity, and we're in an industry where we have the ability to actually make an impact during very troubled times. And I think that not many people have that opportunity in a lifetime, and a lot of people don't realize that that is what's in front of them. And that's another big thing I actually didn't bring up, circling all the way back, is one big gap that I see in our industry is there's not enough talk about consumer safety and what's best for them. And that's something that we really try to hit home with people who are actually making products for consumers. Talk about brands like, oh yeah, we're gonna launch a Shopify, we're gonna launch a swag brand, we're gonna do this. And it's like, cool, like how you growing your weed? What's your process? Like why should someone really care about consuming your flower over the next guy, or pay that extra $10 for that eighth? And so that's somewhat of American, I think, problem with the corporatization of our society. But something that I think is really important that needs to be talked about more is like consumer safety and like the quality of products. And for me, the safer and the more quality, the better the outcomes on the test results are going to be. That gives us way more ammo on the marketing side. We can build out terpene profile and cannabinoid education and the full spectrum. It's what really actually matters. And I see it getting lost in translation way too much, and it's a bit disappointing, but also very motivating for me, because that's where I want to come in. And even if it's like we're just having that impact on that one client is how many consumers are consuming that product, right?
Yeah. Well, and I think that's very powerful. There's so much data in terms of like absolute traceability with each individual product that can be used to help market that product, perhaps better than a sticker and a free shirt.
Totally. Totally. And again, not knocking people's perspectives on that stuff. I love when people are thinking ahead and yeah, that's great. You want to do clothing, yeah, that's awesome. But like, let's not forget why we're
Yeah.
here, and that's, that's what I have to remind myself every day. Because it's tough. Like, no matter what, if you're in the cannabis space, even if you work in other industries, it's a tough one. So many different personality types, so many different budgets, so many different rules in different states. It will drive you crazy. For me, I have over 30 employees. We have over 100 clients, and that adds up. Plus all the just BS of the cannabis industry. So yeah, you really got to think long term in this game.
Well, part of the issue is how things continue to change. As soon as you feel like you're hitting the target, it moves. And that seems to happen a lot, particularly in social media. So you had mentioned LinkedIn being kind of the safest bet right now when it comes to social media. We've been hearing rumblings of more and more IG accounts or Instagram accounts kind of getting flagged and shut down recently. Is there a real risk with people committing marketing dollars to social media platforms, given that tomorrow they could be shut off?
I think so. Yeah. So when I mentioned LinkedIn, I think it's a valuable tool for, B2B, B2C, but I think it's way more valuable on the B2B front. And that's also where you'll see thought leadership pieces really convert. Because if you're trying to sell a thought, like another thought leader, you better, that's a really good opportunity to do that. I like to utilize each of the social platforms to their different algorithms, right? So yeah, Meta and Facebook, like Meta, Facebook, Instagram, those are risks to invest in, and that's why when I say the three things I focus on are things that are trackable and there's not risk. Even with our Google PPC and like Meta strategy for ads, we don't put like our clients' websites or their accounts at risk, and we have like our proprietary strategies to make sure that we're able to track everything. And if an account gets shut down, we have backups and a whole strategy there and how we set everything up. And so, yeah, like I think that they're important tools, but not something that I'm selling someone on right away if they're on a limited budget, because it creates a lot of friction between us and them. Because again, social is a very ego-driven channel for people, especially with Instagram. People want to look a certain way. They want to have their messaging a certain way. They want to perform a certain way. But the reality of it is, if you're not working with someone like us who understands what to do and what not to do, yeah, you're going to get shut down. Yeah, maybe you got the 50,000 followers and you get shut down. Then what? So what you should be doing is catering the compliance of your strategy to every single social channel, understanding which social channels are realistic for you to post on, and then also making sure that you are funneling people to the monetization side of your business. So if you're using social, great. Use it for what it is, be compliant, use the channels to their capabilities, try to use the right verbiage, not to get shut down on Meta, but make sure you're pushing people to that email, because no one can take your email list away from you. Make sure you're pushing people to the site strategically. Make sure you're pushing people to that blog strategically. These are the key factors of your business that actually move the needle. And so I view it as a very complementary tool. That being said, I do think that there's some really amazing next level cannabis social media businesses and content creators out there. Some of the best that I've ever seen. But again, I see them get shut down. And so how did they monetize it beyond that one singular platform?
Well, the other big disruptor that I wanted to ask you about before we get out of here is AI, particularly when it comes to content generation. Just because now, after I started talking to everybody about covering the cannabis industry, and they have all those high level questions about what'll work for them. Now that everyone knows about AI and how that they can use it to create everything from writing a social post to an email, they're just like, well, what are you going to do when you're obsolete? And I think that there's a real misunderstanding in terms of the quality of content right now anyways, that AI spits out. And do you see people becoming overly reliant upon AI generated content?
Yeah, totally. We have actually rules and guidelines in our agency of how we use it tastefully and properly. We I think both written and visually, you can tell there's a lot of cues, both written and visually, that you can tell if it was AI generated, and I think that's an immediate turnoff for a lot of people. Not everyone's going to notice it, and I see some content out there that's like ranking that's AI generated, but yeah, like we see things. We will utilize AI to help enhance our original work. So we use it to help, brain dumps, creating outlines with those brain dumps, and then writing the content ourselves, optimizing the content ourselves. Because AI is only going to be able to provide you with so much. It's more we use it as a tool more than the end all be all. I do see a lot of companies like they're just putting out AI blogs. They're not even proofreading them. They're not taking out the AI cues like the little long dash or the way the bullet points are. And people don't realize that like that type of stuff's noticed. And same thing with the design. Like we just took over a client, like a really large seed company, and all their packaging design is AI. And like everyone on our team was just like immediately turned off by that. And yeah, so it's definitely an interesting thing. Our biggest thing is that again, everything that we're doing is trackable. So if we're using it as a tool to enhance the performance and we see that in the data, that's all that really matters to us. We never want to turn off like a client or also the end user of a client's deliverable by it looking or feeling or being AI generated. So again, more of a tool for us. The biggest thing that we've been working on recently is how to track AI specific traffic to the website and account for that in the revenue and data reporting. And that's something that we're releasing here actually soon over the next like 2 months is like our new services and new data tracking based off LLMs and like AI search basically. So that's been really cool because there's a lot of scams out there because it's such a hot topic right now. And there's so much money in it and it's happening so fast where companies are selling people, oh, we do AI tracking for your website and we can show you how much traffic you got. And a lot of them have just been complete BS. And we put the time in to run tests on our own site to see which ones are legit. So like on our inquiry forms, we have a little thing, how did you hear from us? And we're matching up that traffic with what these data reporting studios are telling us. And now we've landed on about two or three that have made it to the final round that we're going to actually integrate into our system, which is really cool.
I'm very fascinated by that because, I mean, we've seen the reports come out where organic traffic is falling off a cliff because of AI summaries. And so any way to kind of track that kind of information in terms of where your brand shows up in the AI summary, but there's really no other trackable data in terms of people coming to your sites or using your information. I don't know. It's that's a very nebulous part of the industry that is hard to navigate.
It is. And I think what we're going to see is something similar to it's almost similar to how like I would approach cannabis ads on a tight budget. So everyone wants to do Facebook ads because it again, like everyone wants to show like, oh, I got that Facebook ad for that cannabis. It's like the hot thing. But people on Facebook aren't necessarily primed to purchase. Like not all of them are. Google ads, though, most people who are searching for something on Google, not all, but most, are looking for something that they need. And so if I was on a tight budget with ads, I would go for a Google ad because that's going to be quickest path to ROI. You're going to get some great data with it. And then once you get the ROI on that and great data to work with, then I would implement meta ads. And I think we're going to see a very similar thing with AI. AI is already on Google, which is a whole another thing to talk about. But with other, ChatGPT and other AI, LLMs out there, yeah, maybe a lot, like Google's lost a lot of traffic, but were those people primed to purchase? That's the question because I use AI to help me organize information, bounce ideas off of, things like that. I'm not saying, hey, like, what's the best Blue Dream vape near me? So I think that we're going to see a lot of change over the next year, a couple of years, but even just this next year is going to be wild. And so we and myself including are very proud of the approach that we're taking, being innovative in that front when it comes to the tracking and utilizing it as a tool properly.
John, I appreciate you really taking the time, and I'm sorry that we went over, but it was like every time you answered something, I was like, "Oh my God, I got to ask about this."
No worries. I'm glad.
But before we get out of here, is there anything else that you want to make sure the Cannabis Equipment News audience either knows about yourself or your work at Puff Creative?
Yeah, I mean, I'm on LinkedIn, so feel free to anyone in your community. Feel free to hit me up personally. Let me know you listen to the podcast. Whatever. We are launching our new site in about 2 weeks, launching new services and our new branding as well. So I would keep an eye on that, puffcreative.com, puffcreativ.com. So
excellent.
On that.
No, very much looking forward to that. And as any news or new services come out, please reach out. We'd love to help spread the word.
Cool. Thanks, David.
All right. Well, before we get out of here, please make sure to like, share, and subscribe to the podcast. You could also help us out a lot by leaving the podcast a positive review on whatever platform you use. If you want to email the podcast, you can reach me at david@cannabisequipmentnews.com with email the podcast in the subject line. You can also subscribe to our daily newsletter. Make sure you get it delivered to your inbox first. For John Shute, CEO of Puff Creative, I'm David Manti. This is the Cannabis Equipment News Podcast, and we will see you next week.
Welcome to the Cannabis Equipment News Podcast.